What makes a game memorable? For me, it consists of a few aspects that work together to make a memory, such as gameplay, art, game flow, and finally music. Now, the NES has some wonderful games that hit all of these on the head, and to me, that's why these games are as popular as they are. Think Super Mario Bros., great gameplay, simple and effective art, a natural game flow, and of course a musical theme from Koji Kondo that still remains to this day. But what if we took all of that away? What if we only focused on the music and totally ignored everything else? We're left with the soundtracks, and that's the topic of today, my top 10 NES soundtracks. Now, before I get into this, I do want to say that I have a huge pet peeve when it comes to folks making top 10s about music and then speaking over the things that they're talking about. Watch Mojo does it all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk briefly about the game and the composer, and then showcase some of the tracks from the game without my commentary. Ready? Let's begin. I've never played this game personally, but I'm very familiar with its insane soundtrack that is 100% a bop. I'm also vaguely familiar with the comic book it's based on because my dad read Archie comics every now and then. Now, in terms of who composed songs for this game, it seems like it was all hands on deck from Konami: Kozo Nakamura, Junichiro Kaneda, Yuichi Sakakura, Tomoyo Tomita, and Ayako Nishigaki. You can recognize that Konami vibe from a mile away. Honorable mention to Gyruss, one of my favorite soundtracks on the NES, is a rather simple one. For the most part, the meat and bones of this game's main theme is Toccata and Fugue in D minor, which is used quite often, but in Gyruss, it works wonderfully. Treasure Master was an interesting game because it was created with the intention of being used in an MTV contest. Basically, you would play the game, get some practice and experience under your belt, and then you had until April 11th, 1992 to do your best. On the last day, MTV released a secret code that would let you into the secret 6th level, the prize world, and then consumers went to battle trying to get the best score so that they could call MTV with a code and earn a prize. Here's the issue. It's not a good game. It's quite basic. But Tim Follin. Those of you who don't know, Tim Follin is a composer that, in my opinion, has the worst luck ever because he single-handedly composed on games that were, for the most part, obnoxious bullshit. But he is a god of making the NES sound chip work at what some might think are impossible capacities. And even before that, he was power fisting the ZX Spectrum in Commodore 64. But let's listen to some songs from Treasure Master. Honorable mention of Wolverine, which has music composed by his brother, Geoff. Now, I've never played DuckTales, but if you were to sit across from me and tell me to name some of the most memorable songs on the NES, I would say the theme from Legend of Zelda, the theme from Super Mario, and Moon from DuckTales. Again, I've never played it, never really even bothered with it, but I will say that the soundtrack is excellent, mostly because Hiroshige Tonomura got handed a memorable theme on a silver platter. Back in the day, DuckTales was a huge TV show, and I loved watching it, so hearing the theme in chiptune format, I dig it. Here's some of the tracks. I wanted to try to avoid some of the ultra-popular OSTs because for me, one memorable song doesn't mean that the overall soundtrack is great. If we look at Mario 3, it's a bop the whole time. Did you know that Famicom game music was meticulously coded using Famicom Basic? And that Koji Kondo wrote the portion in the manual for Famicom Basic that teaches you how to make music on it. I might try my hand on it someday. But I digress. Super Mario 3 is one of my favorite games on the NES, and here's some tracks that I enjoy. Shatterhand is a cult classic from Natsume. For those who care, those are the same folks who made Abadox The Deadly Inner War, which is one of the games that I suggested in my previous episode, 10 NES games you should play, which is one of my highest viewed episodes for whatever reason. Shatterhand is a side-scrolling action game that features Steve Herman, a cop who loses his arms due to a fight against the Metal Command. Then he gets these cybernetic arms that totally body anything and everything in his way. It's a really cool game. Honorable mention to Solstice, which in my opinion has one of the most amazing intro songs on any NES game that I've ever experienced. You want to guess who did it? Fucking Tim Follin! Legends say that the cover of Solstice is really him composing this song. This game isn't particularly great, and it surely doesn't stand out in comparison to other games that it seems to be based off of, like R-Type and Gradius, but Masaharu Iwata's soundtrack? Absolutely a banger. By the way, this game was made by Hot B. It's the same people who made the Black Bass and the Blue Marlin, the latter of which is, in my opinion, one of the greatest sports games on the NES. This is another game I've never played, nor have I heard of it prior to making this video. I sat through tons of music while writing upcoming episodes, and I love the vibe of it. It's very Konami-centric, but it seems like a jam session the whole time. I will always prefer game soundtracks that have a unique aspect to it, where musical talent shines, and unfortunately that means that some people overdo it, like Phil Collins in Tarzan, right? Just 500% effort for a movie that does 10%. That being said, let's enjoy some tunes from Bucky O'Hare. I could have easily popped on all of the Mega Man games on this list, but to me only certain stages stand out. Mega Man 1 has Guts Man, Mega Man 3 has Snake Man, and that's just some of my personal favorites. If I had to choose one game out of the NES series, it would be Mega Man 2. When you think of larger soundtracks, what comes to mind is Final Fantasy, where every single moment during the game seems to have a distinct song. From an isolated cave, to the menu, to the prelude, to the overworld, every moment is defined by the brilliance of Nobuo Uematsu. He paints a picture with musical notes, and that's not something I can say often, especially someone with a musical background. He killed it. Final Fantasy is one of my favorite RPGs on the system, and the music is a big reason why I enjoy it so much. Here are some of my personal favorites. Also, I'm going to throw in a bonus because the Final Fantasy remake for the PSP and Game Boy Advance has a fully remade soundtrack, so we kind of get a glimpse into what instruments Nobuo Uematsu wanted to use. Let's listen to those same songs, but reimagined. Honorable mention to Eric the Viking by Neil Baldwin. This game was never released. It was based on a movie, based on a book from Monty Python's Terry Jones. When I tell you that this game likely would have had one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard, I'm not kidding. Neil Baldwin was going to accomplish an impossibility with the NES sound chip. And when I heard this song, I had to take a seat. It captivated me. I'm a sucker for good music. When you deal with depression the way that I do, music has a way of speaking to you. It kind of drags you out of the pit, kind of hugs you when nobody is there. It's brain candy. Listen to this song. this is one of the worst games I've seen, but I've never played it. I've avoided it like the plague because the sheer amount of bullshit slung your way absolutely ruins the game. I think it's fair to say that AVGN, he was right on this one. In reality, it's 100% Software Creation's fault that this game played out the way that it did. They were the ones who made subpar games. But for whatever reason, the soundtrack is an absolute 500 out of a 10. I wonder why.
Oh fuck yeah, Tim Follin!
That's right, Tim did this one as well. Have you figured out the trend I mentioned in the beginning of this video? Tim Follin is a musical genius. To me, he's the English Nobuo Uematsu. He tested the limits of the system and knocked it out of the water every single time. And I saw in an interview, he really didn't enjoy making chiptune music. Can you imagine if he would have? While we're at it, let's look at one more piece of Tim Follin's catalog. Journey to Silius is a game I always hear about because of its difficulty and even more so because of its music. You know how I've been sitting on Tim Follin's lap, excitingly kicking my feet like a child because I hold him on a pedestal of compositional gods? The same that got, tragically relegated to rubbish games? I feel the exact same way about Naoki Kodaka and Sunsoft. Most of their NES games to me are hot garbage, but the music is great. In the case of Journey to Silius, we have a difficult game that's actually pretty fun with a phenomenal soundtrack. Here's a few songs to enjoy. And those are the top 10 soundtracks for NES games in my opinion. There are so many games out there and I wasn't able to listen to them all, but I tried my hardest to put together a quick reference for you so that maybe you can make your 8-bit playlist a little bit more bopping. It means a lot that this was a viewer request episode, and please do keep those suggestions coming. I love making videos for all of you. It makes my life easier to live. It makes me happy. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and down below tell me your favorite NES soundtrack because I'd love to check it out. Now that like button is looking pretty lonely. Feel free to click on it and make it happy. As always, from my family to your family, good energy, good vibes. Fortifier out.